I've been hearing a sound. I've only faintly heard it. For a moment, I thought it was just my imagination. But after this ordeal happening for a week, then two, I started doubting that this was more than just my imagination. At first, I didn't know what I was hearing. It was almost mesmerizing. It was such an oddly beautiful tune. Once I started to concentrate on the noise, it almost sounded like a violin. A soft violin. Yes, that's it. Today marks the 2-week streak of that song playing again for its 3-hour segment. Every night I was plagued with that horrid tune. It was 12 in the morning. The song always plays when it's dark, and when nobody is out, which is odd. Right now, it's a bit early for it to play, so it surprised me when I heard that same eerie tune play. The violin made me wonder, where was the sound coming from? Who was the person producing such a sound? So many questions. I wondered if my parents could hear it. Maybe I'm just going insane. Just maybe. The next morning I came down to breakfast. My mother came and, as usual, greeted me with a smile and a good morning. I sat down as she gave me some toast. "How did you sleep, hon?" said my mother, her grin practically radiating. I wondered how she could be this cheery. "Not great," I muttered. "Oh, well, it's a good thing it's a weekend. Your father is out for a business meeting and won't be back till Monday. I'm going to my mom's, so you watch over the house while I'm gone, okay? I won't be back till tomorrow." "Okay, Mom." I paused. "Hey, Mom, do you hear a violin at night playing? I've been hearing it. It's usually early in the morning." My mom looked at me concerned, but gave a forced smile. She wasn't hiding it very well. She always has been like that. Keeping secrets wasn't really her thing. "No, I do not. You say it's early in the morning. Maybe you're just sleep deprived," offered my mother. I'm adamant that I wasn't. I was actually awoken by the sound. I dropped the conversation though. My mother probably thinks I'm insane. To be honest, I do too. I watch as my mother grabs her things, waves goodbye, and leaves. Then it hit me. I'm all by myself tonight. I can investigate what that mysterious tune is. I began to think. What do I know about this thing? I knew that it was the sound of a violin, and that it always came at the early hours of morning. I once got up to investigate, when I first started hearing it. Over by the forest that I can see in my backyard, I saw a flash of something. A person. Too big to be a cat or a raccoon. I thought nothing of it. Till now. So I knew maybe the place of whatever is playing that violin, and at what time it appears. As I pondered about what else, I came to a sudden realization. This thing might be dangerous. I never had thought about that. Whatever this unknown entity is, wants my attention for a reason, lest it be good or bad. I came to the conclusion I should make a note and stick it to the kitchen counter, saying where I'm going, why I'm going, just in case I never come back. That is a scary thought. Just in case I never come back. For all I know, it's nothing but maybe a squirrel, but it's still safe to have that note, just in case. I look at the time. 5 o'clock. It's been a few hours, hasn't it? I got up to get the mail. I noticed my neighbor, Martha, waved at me, and I waved back. She walked up to the fence that spaced our yards apart. She was a nice old lady. and I really enjoyed her company. "Hi, Martha. How are you doing?" I chirp, glad to see her. "Oh, I'm just doing fantastic, darling. You look quite tired. Are you having trouble sleeping?" said Martha. I smile. Nothing gets past her. I then realized maybe she might know of the violin. "Yeah, I've been having some trouble sleeping. Say, have you been hearing a violin playing? I've been hearing it nearly every night," I ask, hoping I might get some answers. To my dismay, Martha's smiling face turned to a cold, pale, serious one. She seemed flustered. She suddenly leans closer to me. I, too, lean closer. I want to get as much information as possible. "I've heard some rumors. I've never heard it myself, but legend says that there is this creature that has been supposedly living in that very forest that's behind your backyard. Legend says that whoever hears his violin is his next victim. If I were you, I wouldn't go to that forest," muttered Martha. I laughed and smiled at Martha. "It's probably just a silly myth, Martha. I'm probably just hearing things. You shouldn't worry about that," I reassure Martha. She stared at me for a good few seconds. I shift my weight, uncomfortable. She sighed and turned. I have to go. Do get some sleep," said Martha, quickly, before walking back to her house and slamming the door. I found such behavior to be way odd for her. I grabbed some pizza from the fridge and heated it up. I nibbled on it and wrote the letter. After finishing the pizza and the letter, I taped it on the kitchen counter and went to bed. Right on cue, I awakened to the sound of that unknown, haunting violin. 1 o'clock. Right on time. I grabbed my robe, flashlight, phone, and put my shoes on. I take a deep breath and take a step outside, heading towards the forest. I follow the sound of the violin, hearing it as it gets louder and louder, as I go deeper and deeper. I couldn't see my house anymore, which made me a little nervous, though I already have been from the start. I swing my flashlight around. Thankfully, I seem to be close to the source. "Hello?" I say tentatively. Suddenly, I see a flash go behind a tree. I swing my flashlight wildly, stunned, as my heart rate quickens. My hand trembles. I notice how dizzy I've started to become as I stumble, and there, I see it. I see a silhouette of a man. I shine it again as my vision blurs. A man, definitely. He must be in his 20s, 30s. He has pale blonde hair, almost white, which I thought odd. Maybe he's an albino. He wore a very long black scarf which blew in the wind. He was tall, 6 feet I estimate. He wore black gloves, and it made me wonder why he was wearing them. His whole attire was raggedy. I could see his foot hanging out of one of his shoes, and his pants were ripped to shreds at the ends. He looked like he literally ran through the entirety of the woods, and then had a fight afterward, with the mud smeared all over his clothes, holes on his shirts, and rips scattering every piece of clothing on his body. I noticed his face was turning away from me. Excuse me, sir. Who are you?" I called. The man pauses and stops his playing, slowly dropping his bow. He puts down his violin. He slightly turns to me, still not revealing his face. "So you noticed, my dear, of my music," said the violinist. I was taken aback by his voice. It was so raspy and demonic. "Why, yes, sir," I stuttered. collecting myself. "It's a shame. You're so polite. I bet you'll be just as delicious," chuckled the man. He turned around and I screamed. His face. Oh God, his face. He didn't have one. It was just this empty hole. He snarled and charged at me. His abnormally long tongue hung out of his mouth, pitch black. A row of sharp teeth appeared around the edges of the hole that was his face. He ripped his gloves off, revealing long, black claws, in which he swiped them at me. I assumed he wore gloves to cover his claws. I dodged, yelped, and ran for my life. My flashlight started to flicker. "No, no, no. Not now. Don't die, please." I screamed at the flashlight. It was no use. I just had to blindly run through this god-forsaken forest. For my life. From this thing. I wail, as I see in my peripheral vision the monster trying to attempt another slash at me with his claws. I could tell this thing was hungry. He wanted food, and I was his only source of it. I run, and I run, until I hear that awful violin. I didn't know he had brought it. My vision begins to dwindle. I start getting dizzy, and my pace starts becoming slower. No, I can't stop. I gotta keep going. I have to get out of this forest if it was the last thing I do, which at that moment I started to think it really was going to be my last. I go behind a tree, in hopes it will hide me. It did not, as I saw that empty black hole right next to my face, screeching. It went from a gentleman in the woods playing the violin to a monster that was like a demon. I scream and I run once again. I was 1 foot away. 1 foot. And then I hit the ground. The thing had tackled me. It rolled in my face, and I screamed, wailed, and kicked. I tried everything in my power to stop it from doing whatever it was going to do to me. "Nobody escapes the violinist," it said. The last thing I saw was the inside of the mouth of the violinist as it took a bite of my face. At least, I tried.